Have you ever felt that people try to knock you down, but something bigger always sustains you in silence? And if I told you that the reason for all this is about to be revealed, and that you are not here by chance, what is about to happen in your life is no coincidence. It is justice. It is revelation. It is God showing who has always been in control. In this video, you will understand why silence was your greatest strength, and how those who attacked you will fall before everyone. Before continuing, already leave the like if this message is touching your heart. Subscribe now to the channel because here we expose the truth, reveals the hidden, and strengthens those who need to hear what no one has the courage to say. And at the end of the video, comment on number 22 if you felt that this message was made especially for you. Let's show that there are a lot of people waking up, and you are part of this movement. You are exactly where you needed to be. Now take a deep breath and get ready, because the justice that comes from above doesn't delay, it doesn't fail, and it will surprise you. Silence may seem harmless. In many moments it even sounds like weakness, but there is a kind of silence that carries with it a hidden power, a force that grows in the shadow as the eyes of the world turn to the noise. This silence is not empty. It is loaded with strategy, waiting, observation, and it is in this silent interval that the most confident enemies, those who feel untouchable, make their greatest mistakes. They do not realize that every step, every malicious word, is being observed by something far beyond human vision. While they think they are winning, they are just dating their own fall. This silence works like a delicately woven trap of time. While opponents dance in their arrogance, convinced that no one has them, time acts as an accomplice of justice. Silence only hides the sound of the clock that marks the end of the game. There are no warning shouts, no visible threats, only blind confidence from those who do not realize that they are already exposed. And it is in this scenario that the first act of the fall reveals itself, not with an explosion, but with a sudden crack on the basis of pride. And when the silence is finally broken, it's too late. The fall is public, inevitable, with no room for escape or denial. What seemed inertia was, in fact, preparation. Justice need not make noise to be relentless. When it arrives, it's like a silent avalanche, fast, heavy, and definitive. Those who once mocked the silence now drown in him, and whoever waited silent sees the truth lift with the force of 1,000 voices. There is an invisible watch that no one can stop. He does not obey human time or the hurry of the world. It is a sacred, accurate time that marks each act, every intention, every lie given in the shadows. While the unfair are walking with the certainty that nothing will reach them, this clock advances relentlessly, counting the seconds until the moment of the revelation. They confuse God's silence with absence, their patience with permission, and it is in this fatal error that the end begins. The divine clock does not anticipate the trial. He awaits the exact point where the ego reaches its apex, where the enemy believes he has won for good. It is when false comfort sets out that the coup of justice becomes more sharp, because it is not just about punishing. It is about teaching, exposing, revealing. There is no hurry in the act of above. There is intention. Every second that passes, even in apparent calm, is a thorough construction of the fall that will come. And when it arrives, there is no way to claim surprise. All the signs were there, hidden in time. When the clock stops, it all lights up. The curtain opens, and those who thought being in control realize that it was just a piece of a larger plot. There is no way to hide or how to rewrite history. Justice is not late. It comes at the moment when the truth has the most impact, when the mask not only falls, it shatters, and everyone watches. Because this is the power of divine time. It does not have to run, just hit the exact second of transformation. Pride is a distorted lens. He transforms weaknesses into illusory strength, makes those who make mistakes see themselves as untouchable gods. It is a sweet poison that feeds the ego until it inches and explodes. And while the world spins, the proud continues to believe that his image is unbreakable, that his word is law. They move with arrogance, mock justice, and believe they can shape the truth to their convenience. But there is an invisible limit, a fine line that, when crossed, starts to the end. And pride, sooner or later, always crosses this line. The fall begins from the inside. Those who are blinded by their own image do not perceive the signs around. Friends move away, situations collapse, but they insist on maintaining the unbeaten theater. And the more they insist, the more fragile they become. The castle built on lies begins to tremble, but pride does not let it retreat. Instead, they move on, accelerating their own collapse. It is like someone running toward an abyss, convinced that they can fly. And then, when the fall happens, it is brutal. Not because it was sudden, but because it was ignored for so long. The proud ruin is not just a stumble, it's a spectacle. What was boasting becomes shame. And those who watched from afar, who were injured or silent, finally see the truth rise on the rubble. Pride that once protected them becomes their greatest weakness. And justice, which seemed distant, reveals itself as the only possible destination. There is a time when even the best-made mask begins to crack. As much as an enemy tries to hide its true intentions, the weight of falsehood always charges its price. They use sweet words, calculated gestures, and an image built to deceive. But the truth has patience, and knows exactly when it appears. No matter how long it takes or how convincing the disguise, the truth only needs a small breach to explode like a storm. The problem of those who live on a facade is that they end up believing in their own staging. They think they dominate the plot, that no one will ever discover what really happens behind the scenes. But life is made of cycles, and there comes a time when the script escapes the control. It is at a meeting, in a casual conversation, in any slip. Suddenly all that was a lie reveals itself. And when that happens, it's like lighting a light on a stage full of secrets. No one can look away. The mask not only falls, she disintegrates. And what remains is the naked face, marked by the choices that were made in the dark. The surrounding people change their eyes. Admiration becomes doubt, confidence in revulsion, and who was once seen as an example is now synonymous with mistake. This is the price of living in lies. When revelation comes, there is no way to ask for silence, because the truth does not whisper, she shouts, and your echo is impossible to ignore. Behind each betrayal, there is a sequence of small, hidden decisions. A bad comment here, a selfish choice there, a subtle lie planted carefully. Enemies never act at once. They build their plot in silence, with the darkness to hide their steps. But what they don't realize is that each action, even the most disguised, carries a weight, and this weight accumulates to the point where it becomes unsustainable. God does not need to create an artificial punishment. It only allows each attitude to have its consequence. As an account that accumulates without the debtor realizing, moral debt grows, and what was hidden is taking shape, gaining body, until it no longer fit the shadows. It is at this moment that everything turns against those who acted with malice. The acts themselves become undeniable evidence. There is no way to escape the mirror when it shows exactly who you are. The fall, then, is self-inflicted. Not because someone caused it, but because brick was built by brick by the hands of those who thought it was in control. And when the eyes turn to that person, there is no argument that erases the history of their actions. The trial happens without court, in the eyes of those who now know the truth. And this is a heavier sentence than any formal condemnation, to be seen as what it really is, without further masks, without more lies. They confuse their patience with weakness. They judge their silence as withdrawal. As they set up pitfalls, they spread lies and tried to destabilize you. They thought they were in control. But what they did not know is that every attitude of yours was intentional. You watched, recorded. I waited. Not because he was afraid, but because he understood that there are battles that beat themselves without lifting their voice, only with time as an ally. While the others were rushed into the victory in a hurry, you were planning the certainty that justice would come accurately. This wait became an invisible trap. The more the enemies moved, the more exposed they became. With inflated trust, they came to act without caution, revealing who they really were. His words began to contradict himself, his plans lost consistency, and all this happened under its apparent stillness. It was like watching a predator digging his own hole, not noticing that he was already surrounded. The trap was not assembled by you. It was built by their own actions while you just let time reveal the perfect scenario. When the truth finally emerged, there was no escape. Every gesture of yours, every choice to wait instead of realizing, has become proof of your emotional intelligence and divine wisdom acting in your favor. What seemed passivity was actually strategy. And in the end, who tried to manipulate you fell on your own trap. His patience was the most powerful weapon, and they never knew what they were dealing with until the last second. There are truths that hide, dormant for a while, but when they awaken, they make more noise than any lie ever. The truth does not need a spectacle. It imposes itself by its own strength, and when finally breaks the veil of distortion, its impact is overwhelming. Those who tried to reverse the facts, who manipulated stories to knock you down, begin to be suffocated by what they have tried so much to hide. It is not just a revelation, it is a scream that crosses every space where the lie has tried to settle itself. This moment is unique. Truth explodes before all, dismantling false narratives, confronting each viewer with raw and undeniable reality. The people who once doubted you now see clearly, and those who have judged you unfairly need to deal with the guilt of silence or connivance. It is as if the whole world woke up from a trance, seeing what has always been before the eyes, but only now shines with undeniable strength. The beauty of this cry of the truth is that it does not need defense. He sustains himself. While lies require constant reinforcements, the truth only remains solid, clear, eternal. And at that moment, anyone who once slaughtered you sees everything crumble around you. The scream is not revenge, it's justice, a roar that echoes where before there was only doubt, and you finally don't have to say anything else. The world already understood. Every farce one day becomes a show, and not because you exposed someone, but because the scams themselves couldn't support the character. They lived a constant theater, staging kindness, forging intentions, manipulating glances. For a long time, many deceived many, but no one can act forever. Truth charges a high price of continuous performance, tiredness, and when tiredness beats, the mistakes begin. Poorly placed words, contradictions, attitudes that no longer match the paper. The show begins the moment they lose control of the narrative. Those who followed them begin to notice the inconsistency. The masks slip, revealing true expressions that have been stored for a long time. And then the audience understands that the show has never been about truth, but about manipulation. The audience changes position, of admirers become critical, of accomplices, witnesses. And in this new act, the villain finds himself alone on stage, surrounded by truths that cannot erase. The irony is that they wanted control. They wanted applause. They wanted recognition for a character who never existed. And they end up winning the spotlight for what they are really. The show becomes public shame. And you, who endured everything in silence, finally sees justice to draw in the form of an attentive audience. Everyone watches. Everyone understands. And the scam, finally, comes to an end. Not with closed curtains, but with the raw light of truth illuminating every detail of the mistake. It was not necessary direct confrontation. There was no need to take revenge. The enemy simply destroyed with the same weapons he used against you. The lie, which was his shield, became a time bomb. The manipulation, which was his form of control, turned against him. And the ego, which inflated his confidence, pushed him straight into the collapse. Each strategy created to knock you down has become a step towards the fall itself. It was as if each action was part of an invisible plan that already predicted its failure. This self-destruction is one of the most impactful acts of divine justice. There is no external interference, no one pulling the wires, only the inevitable result of the choices made. What started as an attack ends as a consequence. The previously unshakable person begins to dispose of the eyes of all, desperately trying to keep the pose, but with nothing more that sustains his image. And the more it tries to resist, the more sinks. The beauty of this justice is that it is accurate. It is like a mirror placed before the enemy, reflecting everything he tried to hide. Destruction does not come from outside. It comes from within. It is the very weight of falsehood, pride, the disrespect that implodes everything. And you didn't have to raise a finger, because the truth has this silent force. It takes revenge without violence. She only expects the liar to trip over her own traps, and he always stumbles. There is no more cruel stage than that built by your own hands. And that's exactly what happened to your enemies. They prepared the scenario, created the dialogues, invited the audience, but they forgot one detail. As they put themselves in the center of the stage, they became the protagonists of their own ruin. Every act of wickedness, every disseminated lie, every gesture of arrogance was another nail fixed on this damn stage. And on the day of the great presentation, they could not escape the lead role, that of public humiliation. The exhibition was not forced. There was no invasion. They themselves presented themselves. From wanting attention, they attracted too much glances, and with them came the questions, the analysis, the judgments. Nothing else could be hidden. The lights were lit and the audience attentive. The faces that once applauded now expressed shock and disappointment. There was nowhere to run. The stage became an arena, and the truth was the most devastating spectacle ever watched. The final irony is that all this could have been avoided. It was enough humility. It was enough. But they chose the staging, and eventually turned the center of a piece that ends in free fall. You, outside, watch with the serenity of those who were wronged, but knew how to wait. And now it sees justice not as revenge but as a balance being restored. Because when the stage collapses, it only remains standing those who never pretended. The suffering seemed endless. Each attack, every injustice, every slander reached like a break without respite. But what your enemies never understood is that while trying to bury you, you were creating roots. The pain they caused did not destroy you. He shaped you, and it was precisely through the tears that you discovered your greatest strength. What seemed the end was only the fertile ground of a transformation they could never predict. God does not waste pain. He transforms it into purpose, healing, a reward. This reward is not just material, nor made of public applause. It is an invisible crown that carries dignity, wisdom, and peace. That's when you look yourself in the mirror and see someone stronger, more whole, more aware of who you are. The blessing that arrives does not replace pain, it honors it. Each scar becomes a medal. Each loss gives room for something new and more significant. And the most powerful, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Life itself is in charge of showing that those who plant faith reaps miracle. And when this reward comes, it's surprising even for you, because it is not just victory, it is divine justice in the form of fullness. While those who hurt you try to understand how everything has changed, you just live what God has always planned. They wanted to erase you, but ended up lighting the fire that now illuminates your way. And so, from the darkest place, you rise. Not like who goes back to the starting point, but as who wins a throne forged in overcoming. Envy does not hide forever. As much as they try to chew her with smiles and false compliments, she escapes. In the tone of the voice, in the look it avoids, in the small attitudes that added everything. The enemies that attacked you didn't do it for something you did wrong, but for what you represent. His light bothers those who live in the darkness of his own frustration, and it is this silent envy that moved every attempt to stop you. But what they didn't know is that envy shouts, and sooner or later everyone listens. It is a scream that does not need to be verbal. He appears in the desperate attempt to slow you down, in the obsession with discrediting you, in the constant need to put you as a threat. But all this just reveals the real reason for the attack, the discomfort of seeing you grow, resist, shine. They designed upon you your own insecurities, your failed faults, your lost battles. And when the truth comes to light, what is seen is not just a defeated enemy, it is a human being exposed by internal misery itself. This revelation is powerful because it changes the narrative. Attack victim, you become a symbol of resistance. And they, who wanted to look superior, end up revealing the smallest in their hearts. The world sees. The disguises fall. And it is clear that the problem was never you. It was the envy that consumed them. Now they no longer fight against you, but against the reflection of themselves. The power they thought to have was just an illusion supported by the fear they imposed. With sharp words, with calculated gestures, dominated environments, influenced decisions, imposed their presence as if they were unquestionable. But there is a limit to how much you can manipulate before the system that supports them begins to crumble. And when this structure begins to collapse, it is impossible to maintain appearances. Power changes hands, and what was previously dominated becomes despair. This turnaround is subtle at first. Small loss of control, allies who move away, situations that do not unfold as they expected. But soon it becomes evident. Something has changed. The center of influence moves, and who was once oppressed begins to be heard. You who was silent, discredited, are now sought, valued. Justice begins to manifest itself not with fuss, but with authority. A new kind of power is installed, one who doesn't have to impose, just exist. This new position is not the result of manipulation. It is a consequence of truth and resilience, and so it is unshakable. The ancient power, built on fear and lies, crumbles to the slightest touch of reality. But the new power, which is born of justice, remains. Because he was not imposed, he was recognized, and the turnaround is completed. Who once sent, now begs for relevance. Who was heard, is now ignored. The game turned, and you not only won, redefined the rules. For a long time they were idolized. They built a solid, admirable, imposing image, but the structure was made of sand, forged applause, compliments bought, manipulation, based influence. And for a while it worked. People believed. Yourself perhaps believed. But the truth has a peculiar way of acting. It not only destroys the lie, it shows everyone how it was built. And when this happens, the collapse is not only visible, it's memorable. The fall of a false idol is painful to watch but necessary, not because you want the misfortune of others, but because justice needs to be complete. And there is no justice without exposure. What was previously admired is now questioned. The base crumbles, and the figure that was put as a reference becomes a joke, becomes alert. The people who followed him come to avoid him. The allies disappear, and everything that has been used against you now turns against them. Twice as much strength. And you, who suffered silent, see the world understand what you always knew. The idol was never real. It was just a projection of those who wanted to dominate by appearance. Now, with the truth exposed, what remains is silence. Not yours, but theirs. A heavy silence of those who have no more arguments. The sand drips between the fingers, and the stage that supported them now is just dust. The fall was public. The lesson, eternal. They planned their end accurately. They traced strategies, used words like weapons, involved others in their plots, and for a while it seemed that they would win. But what they never imagined is that you were being strengthened in the process. Every blow that hit you, instead of destroying you, rebuilt you. And when they thought you were about to fall, you got up. Not angry, not with rematch, but with purpose. While they celebrated the premature victory, you were preparing for the rise. This rise was not theatrical. She was silent, firm, consistent. You started to shine without fuss, occupying spaces without asking for permission. And gradually, the scenario has changed. The eyes that once ignored you now follow you. Those who attacked you begin to lose space. Their own mistakes condemn them, and the strength they once used against you now weighs on them. Not because you retaliated, but because the world is seeing. The truth is taking the place of manipulation. The end of this story is different from what they imagined. Not only did they lose power, they lost control of their own narrative. And you, who were the target, became the protagonist. The script they wrote to overthrow you became a witness to your resilience. And as they try to understand how it went wrong, you just walk toward what is your right. Because in the end, justice always finds who deserves. And good, as silent as it may be, always wins.